My name is Miriam Calloway. I'm 62, and I've spent most of my life putting others first. Retired now, I still find comfort in routine chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, humming old tunes from when Marcus was a boy. The kitchen smelled of garlic and rosemary, the kind of aroma that always made the house feel like home. The phone rang, sharp and insistent, dragging me out of my calm. I wiped my hands on a towel and glanced at the screen. Marcus. My heart skipped, a familiar warmth rising. I hadn't heard his voice clearly in a few weeks. But the voice that answered wasn't his. Hello? Miriam, said a smooth, controlled tone. This is Emiliana. The knife slipped slightly in my hand. Emiliana, Marcus's fiancée. The woman who had slowly crept into every corner of our lives over the past 2 years. I felt a sudden chill. I'm calling with a simple request. She continued. If you want to attend the wedding and see your future granddaughter, you'll need to send $50,000. My chest tightened, disbelief rooting me to the spot. $50,000. The money I'd spent decades saving for emergencies. For Marcus's college, for my quiet retirement. My mind raced, weighing principles against love, morality against desperation. I breathed slowly, trying to steady the storm inside me. I couldn't imagine giving her that sum, yet I couldn't ignore the threat to see Marcus, to see the child I had dreamed about holding one day. I hung up, hands trembling, heart pounding, and sank onto the kitchen chair. I stared at the chopping board, the half-cut vegetables mocking my indecision. As memories of raising Marcus alone began to flood back, everything I'd sacrificed for him, everything I couldn't bear to lose. I sat at the kitchen table, hands still shaking, staring at the knife I had set down. The phone call echoed in my mind, but beneath the shock was a deeper, familiar warmth, memories of Marcus as a boy, running barefoot through the backyard of our small Austin home, his laughter bright against the Texas sun. I had raised him alone after his father left when Marcus was just 8. Every scraped knee, every school project, every late-night story I whispered at his bedside had been mine to shoulder. I remembered the nights I worked double shifts at the hospital, exhausted but determined, saving every penny for his future, college tuition, birthday gifts, that first car I had sacrificed quietly, with no expectation of gratitude beyond seeing him happy. His 10th birthday came to mind, the homemade cake with lopsided frosting, candles flickering as he made wishes I couldn't even imagine. He had always been a dreamer, full of energy and curiosity, and I had been there to nurture it, to guide him through triumphs and disappointments alike. And now, that same boy, grown and independent, was being pulled into someone else's scheme. Emiliana's voice on the phone had pierced me, not just because of her audacity, but because it threatened everything I had built for Marcus, not just his comfort or safety, but the trust and love between us. It wasn't just money she wanted. It was control, a wedge between mother and son. I traced my finger along the rim of my coffee cup, remembering the countless mornings we had shared, the quiet conversations over scrambled eggs and toast. I could still hear his voice, young and bright. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. Those words had carried me through sleepless nights and long years. They reminded me why I couldn't bend to this demand, why I had to find another way to protect him and the child I had yet to meet. Over the following days, I began to notice the small ways Emiliana had infiltrated our lives. At first, they were almost imperceptible: a missed call here, a postponed lunch there, but gradually the pattern became clear. Marcus, who had once called me at least 3 times a week, now seemed impossible to reach. Messages went unanswered. visits shortened or canceled at the last minute, and excuses piled up like autumn leaves on our front porch. I remembered his high school graduation, the one I had promised myself I would attend no matter what. Emiliana's influence had been subtle, yet effective. "Marcus is exhausted," she had said, her tone calm but persuasive. "He'll be fine if you stay home." And I had stayed, unsure whether I was helping or being pushed aside. Birthdays and anniversaries followed the same pattern. When Marcus turned 25, he sent a brief text while Emiliana orchestrated a quiet evening with friends I didn't know. She never spoke harshly, never told him not to see me, but she managed to create the space between us without confrontation. Each success, each milestone in his life, she had claimed subtly, reshaping the boundaries I thought were secure. I began keeping mental notes, remembering every small slight, every moment I had brushed off as coincidence. The pattern was too deliberate to ignore. My frustration grew not only at Emiliana, but at my own hesitation, my fear of appearing controlling or jealous. I wanted to protect Marcus, but how could I act without pushing him further away? Without letting Emiliana win completely, I spent a quiet evening on the porch, the Texas sky dark and heavy above me, thinking through the subtle manipulations that had been accumulating for months. The warmth of old memories clashed with the cold reality of the present. Emiliana had become a quiet architect of distance, and Marcus, blinded by love, had let her. My resolve hardened. I would find a way to reclaim the trust between us, to uncover the truth, and to protect the son I had raised with every ounce of my heart. Chapter 4. Confiding in Claire. The next morning, I drove to Claire's house, the familiar streets of Austin blurring past as my thoughts swirled. Claire had always been the practical one, the voice of reason when I let my emotions run wild. I needed her perspective now more than ever. She greeted me with a warm hug and a steaming mug of coffee, her calm presence immediately easing some of the tension knotted in my chest. I sank into the chair across from her, grateful for the quiet hum of her kitchen, the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls mingling with coffee. "I don't know what to do. Claire," I began, my voice trembling. I told her everything: the phone call, Emiliana's subtle manipulations, Marcus's distant behavior. Claire listened intently, eyes narrowing at the details that made me feel small and powerless. "You're not imagining this, Miriam," she said finally. "She's been methodical, and Marcus hasn't noticed. But you have an advantage: you know him better than anyone. Now we just need to gather facts before you confront her." We discussed options, carefully, discreetly verifying Emiliana's claims, documenting patterns of behavior, and planning a controlled way to reveal the truth without pushing Marcus further away. Claire suggested small steps. First, subtle inquiries, gathering evidence, and reminded me to take care of myself along the way. As I left her house, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. For the first time in weeks, I saw a path forward, with Claire by my side. I wasn't facing this alone. And maybe, just maybe, there was a way to protect Marcus and the future granddaughter I longed to meet. Over the next few days, Claire and I began piecing together the puzzle Emiliana had carefully constructed. We started quietly, making casual inquiries and observing patterns without drawing attention. Miriam's heart raced every time she noticed a small discrepancy, a canceled doctor's appointment that should have been on Marcus's shared calendar, a sudden change in Emiliana's schedule, or a vague excuse when asked about prenatal visits. Claire suggested subtle tactics. Ask friends and co-workers questions in passing. She said, not to accuse anyone, just to see if what she says lines up with reality. So, we did. One friend mentioned Emiliana had claimed to be seeing her doctor weekly, but no one had ever heard of her actually going. Another colleague, careful not to seem intrusive, confirmed she had seen Emiliana shopping freely, without the restrictions you'd expect in early pregnancy. I also began documenting financial oddities Marcus, withdrawing money more frequently. Small loans requested under the guise of baby expenses. Inconsistent receipts. Each detail added to the growing picture Emiliana had created a facade, manipulating Marcus while isolating him from me. At night, I reviewed the evidence, my hands trembling as I stacked receipts, notes, and photos on the dining table. Claire was methodical, laying out a timeline, pointing out contradictions, marking every small but significant inconsistency. It was meticulous work. But with each discovery, I felt a mix of relief and indignation. Relief at seeing the truth emerge. Indignation at the depth of Emiliana's deception. The emotional weight pressed on me, but it also sharpened my resolve. Every detail confirmed what I had feared. Emiliana's influence over Marcus wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. She had been crafting control while I had been left in the shadows. Kept from my son and the grandchild I had dreamed of meeting. By the end of the week, the evidence was undeniable. I felt a flicker of hope, tempered by the understanding that revealing it would require precision and courage. Claire and I would need to act carefully, protecting Marcus from shock while ensuring Emiliana could not manipulate or dismiss the truth. For the first time since that call, I felt that the tide might be turning, and I was ready to fight for my son and the child I had yet to hold. Chapter 6. Preparing for the wedding. The day before the wedding, Claire and I sat surrounded by a small fortress of papers, receipts, and photographs in my living room. The evidence we had gathered over the past week looked overwhelming on the table, but it was precise, undeniable, and meticulously organized. Claire had even edited a short video, carefully stringing together the inconsistencies and moments that revealed Emiliana's manipulation. I ran through it in my mind, imagining Marcus's face as he watched, imagining the gasp of the guests. My stomach twisted. I loved my son fiercely, and the thought of shocking him or causing him pain made my hands tremble. Yet the alternative, letting Emiliana continue unchecked, felt unbearable. Claire, calm as ever, noticed my hesitation. "We're ready," she said. "We know the truth. We just need to present it carefully. With clarity, no yelling, no accusations, just the evidence. Marcus will see it himself." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. We rehearsed quietly, running through the sequence of showing documents and the video, imagining the timing and reactions. Every step was calculated, every pause deliberate. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about revealing the truth, about reclaiming Marcus and protecting him from further deception. That night, I sat alone on the porch, the warm Texas breeze doing little to ease my nerves. Doubts crept in. What if Marcus resented me? What if I destroyed the wedding entirely? But beneath the fear, a small flame of courage burned. I thought of the long years raising him alone, the sacrifices, the love that had never wavered. This wasn't revenge, it was preservation. By midnight, the plan felt as complete as it could be. I set aside the video, triple-checked the documents, and reminded myself to breathe. Tomorrow, everything would change. I didn't know exactly how Marcus would respond, but I knew that inaction was no longer an option. With Claire at my side, I was ready to confront the past, protect the truth, and face the moment I had been preparing for, every nerve taut with anticipation. The morning of the wedding, Austin shimmered under a crisp spring sun. Claire and I drove through familiar streets toward the country club, the scent of freshly cut grass mingling with the faint aroma of blooming magnolias. The building rose elegantly from the manicured grounds, white columns gleaming, guests arriving in polished cars that reflected the morning light. Inside, laughter and chatter filled the grand hall, accented by soft piano music drifting from the corner. Bridesmaids in pale blue whispered and adjusted bouquets, while men in dark suits shook hands, their smiles bright but formal. The air buzzed with expectation, but beneath it, I felt the tension coiled tightly in my chest. Claire gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "Stay calm. We watch. We wait. And we act at the right moment," she whispered. I nodded, heart pounding. We found a seat in the back row, partially obscured by a decorative arch adorned with roses and ivy. From here, I could see Marcus at the altar, adjusting his tie, glancing at the door for the first glimpse of Emiliana. His expression was a mixture of excitement and nervousness. My chest tightened, with both love and apprehension. I studied the guests, noting faces of family and friends, imagining their reactions if the truth surfaced. Emiliana entered, radiant in a designer dress. Her smile perfect, almost too controlled. Every graceful step down the aisle reminded me of her careful manipulation, how she had rehearsed not only her wedding walk, but the control of Marcus and everyone around her. As the ceremony began, I leaned slightly forward, mind alert for the right moment. Every note of the piano, every soft murmur, heightened the anticipation. One wrong move, one premature glance, could shatter the careful timing we had planned. I took a slow breath, letting the tension build, knowing that, in just a few moments, the course of our family would change forever. The ceremony had reached the moment when vows were about to be exchanged. I gripped Claire's hand beneath the pew, feeling the pulse of my own heart thundering against my ribs. The music swelled softly, Emiliana's smile radiant, flawless, yet to me, it felt fragile, rehearsed, vulnerable. I rose slowly, the polished wooden floor cool beneath my shoes. Whispers rippled through the guests as eyes turned toward me. "Miriam, someone called?" Curiosity mingling with surprise? I ignored them, keeping my gaze fixed on Marcus at the altar, his eyes widening in confusion. Claire handed me the tablet. My fingers trembled as I tapped it, bringing the video to life. Faces shifted in the crowd as the screen flickered on receipts, appointments, photos of Emiliana in inconsistent situations, recordings of her financial requests to Marcus, juxtaposed against moments that proved her pregnancy claims didn't match reality. The soundtrack of her carefully rehearsed excuses played beneath the visual evidence. Cold and undeniable, gasps filled the hall. Emiliana's perfect composure faltered, her lips parted, eyes wide, searching for support among the guests. "This isn't real," she whispered, voice trembling. Marcus stepped forward, confusion giving way to shock as he absorbed each piece of evidence. He opened his mouth, but words failed him. I could see the realization dawning. The woman he trusted had manipulated him, isolated him, and tried to control everyone around her. I held my gaze on him, silently conveying everything my words could not. The years of sacrifices, the quiet love, the warnings ignored. Everything was here in this one moment. Emiliana's panic mounted, her hands shook, her voice rising as she tried to deny what the video made undeniably clear. The crowd remained silent, the weight of truth pressing down like a tide. Finally, Emiliana's eyes met mine, pleading, accusing, desperate. I didn't respond. I let the evidence speak for itself. The tension snapped, a quiet sense of vindication washing over me. I felt the years of frustration and fear dissolve, replaced by moral clarity and the justice that had been patiently assembled through meticulous observation and care. Marcus took a deep breath, his expression hardening as he finally turned toward me. Gratitude and relief mingled with lingering shock. The confrontation had ended, and the truth was undeniable. Emiliana's control over our family had crumbled in one decisive, public moment. The room was quiet after the last images flickered across the tablet. Guests exchanged stunned glances, whispers threading through the air like delicate threads pulled tight. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked at me with sympathy, a few nodding as if silently acknowledging the injustice I had endured. Emiliana stood frozen, her carefully constructed composure shattered. The color drained from her face as she clutched her bouquet, her eyes darting from Marcus to the crowd, searching for allies that weren't there. I didn't speak. The evidence had already spoken, and her panic told the truth more clearly than any words ever could. Marcus remained at the altar for a long moment, absorbing the weight of what he had just seen. I stepped toward him cautiously, uncertain how he would receive me after the betrayal he had endured. His eyes met mine, clouded with shock, then clearing into something warmer relief, trust, and the recognition that the bond we shared had not been broken, only tested. "Mom," he said finally, voice thick but steady. "Thank you for protecting me, for seeing through it." I reached for his hand, squeezing gently. The tension in his shoulders eased, and I felt the years of distance, the subtle manipulations, and the anxiety dissolve into this single, fragile moment of reconciliation. Guests began to murmur softly, some approaching me with quiet apologies or affirmations, while Emiliana's attempts to explain herself were met with polite but firm rejection. The social consequences of her deception unfolded naturally, her authority and influence over Marcus and the family crumbling as everyone absorbed the truth. I watched Marcus exhale slowly, his expression softening, a hint of the son I had known for decades returning. He was beginning to process, to heal, and to reclaim the clarity Emiliana had tried to steal. In that quiet, shifting aftermath, I realized the path forward was possible, trust could be rebuilt, and justice, though delayed, had been served. Weeks had passed since the wedding day reveal, and a fragile calm had settled over our lives. I watched Marcus from the kitchen window as he tended to the small vegetable garden behind the house, a quiet smile playing at his lips. The tension that had haunted him for months was easing, replaced by a steady rhythm of work, laughter, and shared moments that reminded me of the boy he had once been. He had begun seeing someone new, Andrea, a colleague whose warmth and honesty complemented his steadiness. They moved carefully, without haste, rebuilding trust and intimacy in a way I hadn't dared hope for. It was comforting to witness him laugh freely, to see him open his heart again, not guarded by fear or manipulation. I reflected on the journey that had brought us here, the betrayals, the sleepless nights, the painstaking gathering of evidence, and the courage it took to confront the lies. I realized that revenge had never been the goal. It had been truth, protection, and the reclamation of love. My heart swelled with a quiet pride, knowing that the years of sacrifices, the quiet persistence, had safeguarded not only Marcus, but the future I envisioned for my granddaughter. Evenings were my favorite now, when Marcus and Andrea would sit on the porch with me, sharing stories, plans, and laughter as the sun dipped below the horizon. I would imagine the day I held my granddaughter in my arms, and the vision felt bright, secure, and full of promise. In the stillness of those moments, I understood that resilience, patience, and unwavering honesty could heal even the deepest wounds. The past's shadows no longer loomed as threats. They were reminders of strength and love persevering through trials. I had found peace. And so had Marcus. Our family, though tested, had been renewed.